Jet lag is every traveler's kryptonite. How do you prevent jet lag from ruining the first few days of your vacation? Are there any ways to outsmart jet lag? I travel between the US and Europe on average about 3 times a year. And while I wish I had some sort of secret cure for jet lag, I just don't. What I do have though is a ton of experience about how to prevent jet lag symptoms from ruining your trip and the things that you can do to prevent the worst of jet lag syndrome. By the end of this video, you will have the tools and strategies to outsmart jet lag the next time you travel to Europe. Hi, I'm Angela, and I moved from the US to Europe 6 years ago, and since then I take on average about 6 international flights a year between the United States and Europe. I have to admit, when I'm traveling from Europe to the US, I kind of love jet lag. For the first week that I'm at home in the States, I'm waking up at 5 o'clock in the morning, just naturally. To my circadian rhythm, that's 11 o'clock in the morning. I've never been a morning person, so this kind of makes me feel a little bit like a superhero. But if you're traveling from west to east, jet lag is a completely different story. When you're heading east, jet lag cuts into your sleeping time and it can make you feel like a bit of a zombie on your first day in your destination. So how can we prevent jet lag, right? Let's get into it. First up, what even is jet lag? Jet lag disorder actually isn't one thing. Jet lag is a collection of symptoms that occur after your body travels multiple time zones without giving itself enough time to adjust. And if we could just stop for a moment, sometimes when I'm feeling generous, I think jet lag is kind of amazing because it occurs simply because we have the technology to travel through so many different time zones so fast. So it's kind of awesome, but it feels like shit. Your circadian rhythm is your body's internal clock, and it is severely thrown out of whack when you travel multiple time zones. Jet lag symptoms include fatigue, difficulty concentrating, digestive issues, headaches, and ongoing sleep disruptions like insomnia or early waking. And like I said, it's usually worse when you travel eastward rather than when you travel westward. There's this informal formula that helps you to figure out how long it will take your body to naturally adjust. So you're supposed to count the number of time zones that you've traveled through, divide that number by 2, and that's the number of days that it will take you to naturally adjust. So for example, if you're traveling from Los Angeles to Paris, you're gonna cross 9 time zones. If you divide those 9 time zones by 2, that gives you 4.5, so 4.5 days until your body naturally adjusts. Since jet lag is caused by this misalignment between your internal clock and the new time at your destination, all of the methods for either preventing it or remedying it focus on getting your body acclimated to your new destination time zone as quick as possible. The #1 way to prevent jet lag when traveling to Europe is to start adjusting your sleep schedule to the time zone of your destination about a week before your departure. This sounds simple in theory, but it's actually really difficult to do in practice. So here's how I've tried to do it. First, I will consider like 5 days before my departure to Europe as my adjustment period. At the beginning of that period, I'll kind of figure out what my average bedtime has been over the past week or so to figure out my baseline, like where am I in this time zone? What's my bedtime? Then I do a quick calculation to figure out what time I've been going to bed in my destination's time. So for example, if I'm on the East Coast of the United States and I've been going to bed at say 11 p.m. for the past week, then that means I've been going to bed at 5 a.m. Frankfurt time or Western Europe time. The second step is to figure out when I want my body to naturally go to sleep on the day that I depart for Frankfurt. So like on the flight, when do I want to be going to sleep? Okay, but when should that be? Your target bedtime for your day of departure is probably going to be about 2 hours into your flight. Take the time that your flight takes off to Europe and add 2 hours. So if your flight is leaving the East Coast at 6 p.m., then that means your body should be ready to go to bed at like 8 p.m. Okay, the third step then is to figure out that difference between the time you've been going to bed, 11 o'clock, and the time you kind of want to go to bed, 8 o'clock. That's like a 3-hour difference, right? So that means that you've got about 5 days, or you could absolutely give yourself longer. You've got that amount of time to pull your bedtime back from 11 p.m. closer to 8 p.m. Obviously, the fourth step is to actually make it happen and get yourself to bed earlier and earlier and earlier on consecutive evenings. The reason that this can be a really difficult way to prevent jet lag is because it requires a ton of prior planning, prior notice, and a lot of times we decide that we have to deal with jet lag like 2 days before our flight or right after we land. The other reason that I don't love this method is that if you have a late departure time like 10 p.m. and you sit through dinner service on the plane, you wait that 2 hours, then it's going to be midnight until you can start to even think about sleeping, which means it's later than when you were actually going to bed at home, right? In those cases, I would suggest that you skip dinner service on the plane entirely so that as soon as you board your flight, get settled into your seat, you can start working on getting some sleep. Okay, I'm just gonna give you guys like the number one thing that I've found to prevent jet lag right here from the jump. I'm not gonna make you wait until the end of the video. The thing that I have found that prevents jet lag the best is to stay awake for the entire day on your first day in Europe or your first day in your destination. It sounds a lot easier said than done. What I mean by stay awake your first day: no naps, no going to bed super early at 5 p.m., nothing like that. You have to treat your first day in your destination as kind of an endurance test. But if you can stay up for that entire first day, then the rest of your vacation is gonna be fine. What gets people in trouble with jet lag is that on their first day in their destination, they'll take a super long nap or they'll go to bed really early. And up front, this feels like you're just giving your body the rest that it craves, right? But this can lead to you waking up in the middle of the night when your circadian rhythm thinks that it's, the middle of the day, and being unable to go back to sleep. Jet lag-induced insomnia is really what you want to avoid. Yes, being very tired when you arrive in your destination is not a great feeling, but that's usually a one and done. If you can endure it for one day, you're good to go. If you don't, you could be dealing with jet lag-induced insomnia for the rest of your trip. Okay, with that in mind, with this idea of like, if you can stay up your first day in your destination, you'll be fine. There's a couple of strategies that begin even before you book your flight. So there's two competing thoughts. The first one I call the itinerary maximizer mindset. Basically, you want as much time in a destination as possible, right? So you are more likely to book a flight that arrives in your destination at like 7:30 in the morning. You look at this on paper and say, oh my gosh, I will have an entire full first day in my destination. Folks that book that flight, they do it with the best of intentions. They imagine themselves full of energy, ready to hit the ground running, and they really think they're gonna carpe the diem on the first day of their vacation. Now consider a different mindset. We'll call this mindset the jet lag avoider mindset. If you're thinking from this vantage point, then your goal is to minimize the amount of time that you have to struggle to stay up on that first day. For this group of people, having to stay up for a very long first day in their destination sounds like a nightmare. Instead, they would rather arrive in their destination as close to bedtime as possible. The arrival times that we're talking about here are somewhere in like the 11 a.m. to 2 o'clock range. If you know yourself and you know that going for a hike or walking through a city is enough to keep you up and you haven't had a difficulty with jet lag in the past, then by all means, be an itinerary maximizer. But if you have a feeling that this might be a little bit of a challenge for you, then I would definitely consider booking that later flight out of the States, arriving a little bit on the later side into Europe, but nipping the whole jet lag thing in the bud on your first day. Another tip for preventing jet lag is prepare yourself to get at least some shut-eye on the plane. I do this by packing what I call a sleep stash or a sleep kit. It's just a little bag that has essentials of like a silk eye mask, earplugs, a melatonin supplement to help me sleep. And unless you're doing like a spa holiday or something super relaxed, you might be wondering like, why does sleep even matter, right? Like, aren't I on vacation? But traveling to Europe can kind of feel like an endurance test. If you're doing a city break, you're probably going to be doing between 15,000 and 20,000 steps a day. So it can be very tiring. Getting good sleep is super important. Regardless of when your flight is, this tip is really important. Keeping hydrated is one of the best ways to keep the worst of jet lag at bay. Staying hydrated on a flight is great advice no matter the context, but it's super important on a transatlantic overnight flight to Europe. Remember, the symptoms of jet lag are things like headaches, fatigue, difficulty concentrating, and gastrointestinal conditions. All of these things will be made more intense if you're dehydrated. Unfortunately, this does mean avoiding alcohol and caffeine. I think that people who say they don't get jet lag or are not affected by jet lag, I don't know if I entirely believe that. But if you have like a jet lag cure or a tactic or a strategy or something that helps you to avoid jet lag, listen, I am all ears. I am always looking for the best advice on this topic. So if you have a jet lag secret cure, please, I'm begging you, add it in the comments. I and the other viewers of this video, thank you. My next tip is to plan a jet lag buster as soon as you get to your destination. Upon arrival, get out into the sun. You want to help your body adjust to that destination time zone as quick as possible, and being outdoors is the best way to do it. A jet lag buster is like any activity that gets you outside, it gets you physically active, and it really just keeps you moving so that you don't even have time to like feel tired. If you're going to an exciting destination and you want to plan something like a walking tour, that could certainly be a jet lag buster, but don't forget to give yourself grace. If you are truly feeling exhausted, you are absolutely allowed to excuse yourself from the group, go sit in a cafe, and just kind of have a moment of rest. Just don't go to sleep. I remember once coming home from the US back to Germany and being so exhausted that the only thing I could do was order like lunch, takeout, and go in the park, sit on a bench, and eat it in the sun. That may sound like such a small thing, but I really do think that it helped me to feel much better the following day. One small thing, in addition to being out in the sunshine and kind of using that natural environment to help your circadian rhythm like adjust, another really helpful thing is to take your meals at the local mealtime. Mealtimes are just another way to signal to your body like what the local time is, so absolutely use those to your advantage. And my final tip, as I've already alluded to, avoid naps and going to bed super, super early. Listen, this is easier said than done. I know how horrible that feeling is of being so desperately tired that you cannot stay awake. If you do need to nap, try to keep your nap to 30 minutes to an hour tops. Anything more and you really are in danger of kind of just delaying the inevitable. Definitely surrounding yourself with like external stimuli is one way to kind of not focus on the fact that you're so tired, but just be sure that you're not doing things that are only exhausting you even more. Okay, if you're already suffering from jet lag and you're wondering, what can I do to lessen the effects of it right now? Here's what I would do. Not to sound like a broken record, but the first thing you should do is go outside into the sunshine. Just get out there, take a 20-minute walk. But what if it's not sunny where you are? It doesn't matter. You still need to be outside. Even like dappled sunlight or overcast, cloudy days, there are still rays getting through, and you need to be out in them. Next, try to have like a small bite to eat. In my experience, giving yourself like a little meal while you're trying to battle jet lag, it's a great way to nourish your body without nourishing it with rest. You just wanna be careful not to like overload your digestive system with a really heavy or rich meal. And finally, if you are absolutely dragging, like you cannot make it through the rest of the day, go ahead and take a really, really small nap. Set your alarm, 30 minutes max, an hour if you are absolutely can't do anything more. But after that nap is done, get up, get outside. If you appreciate the way that I broke down this topic of how to avoid or prevent jet lag when traveling to Europe, then you will love my email course, How to Plan a Trip to Europe. This is a free series of 8 emails, and in each one, I will go step by step through all of the biggest pieces of planning a trip to Europe. So things like choosing a destination and booking airfare, I've got you covered. To sign up, just click on the link in the description below. And if you've got a trip to Europe coming up, then I think you should watch this video next. It's all about what I would pack in my personal item bag if I was flying overnight from the US to Europe. I really appreciate having you here. Until next time.